Hey guys, and welcome back to Trash with a capital T. I am your host, Bobby, and today we are jumping into trashy movies. And I'd been debating what the first movie episode would be. I originally was going to do Yusukadoji. That's the movie back there, if you can see the poster. And decided that probably was not the best place to start. That movie is quite infamous for various reasons, and not as well known as what I'm going to cover. So today we're actually going to be covering a series of films that are very near and dear to my trashy horror loving little heart. We're going to be covering the Slumber Party Massacre series. Now, anyone who is familiar with these movies knows that they are the ones that have a lurid cover art with the young ladies in their underwear being threatened by a guy with a giant drill. Also, on the opposite corner, this series is also known for being all entries being directed by women and written by women. Sometimes the director and the writer are the same person, but female creative driven films. Having said that, it isn't until you get to the remake or the reboot in 2021 where you really start to see a feminist take on the material. I say that now because these movies unfairly get saddled with the label of being feminist films. And I don't say that a feminist film is a bad thing. What I mean is the expectation going in is people are expecting this heavily feminist influenced film, and they're not. They're going to disappoint you if that is what you're looking for. These films, especially the first one and kind of the third one, but that's its own beast we will get to when we get to it, especially the first film, were made to be exploitation films that would run as a B movie. These were just movies to fill out a release schedule because slashers were big at the time. The first movie came out in '82. We're going to actually jump into that film right now. So the original Slumber Party Massacre, not Slumber Party, it has to have the, it's like the Ohio State. The Slumber Party Massacre was directed by Amy Holden Jones and written by Rita Mae Brown, which is very interesting because Rita Mae Brown is a notable feminist and queer author of the book Ruby Fruit Jungle. She also is very famous for writing a series of mystery novels featuring a talking cat. I have read those. Do not be deceived by the cutesiness. Those books get brutal. There are like severed heads getting pulled out of pumpkins and stuff. I had fun with those. But the script from Rita Mae Brown was heavily rewritten by Amy Holden Jones during production. The interesting thing about this one is Holden Jones landed on this movie because she wanted to direct. She had been an editor for Roger. I can't speak. I don't know what's wrong with me today. She had been an editor for Roger Corman for years and really, really wanted to move into the director's chair. So she took a rejected script from a pile of rejected scripts and took a portion of that script without reading the whole thing and directed that portion. She wanted to feature specific things like a dialogue and action. She wanted to kind of show what she could do. So she took $1,000 of her own money, directed it over a weekend, and presented it to Roger Corman. Roger Corman then gave her the green light to direct the movie that she had picked. She didn't want to, but he wanted that movie because he could see that she could make it for very little money, which was the easiest way to get a film greenlit by Roger Corman. So she did. She went in, rewrote the script, made it work for what she wanted, because from what she said, the original script just didn't work, which is why it was in the reject pile. She reworked it, kind of kept in some of the gender role jokes that are in the original script, which you'll get when you watch it. Instead of following cheerleaders or anything, we're following female athletes who are on varsity basketball. Although in the movie you couldn't tell that. You also have a lot of roles that would typically be played by men, played by women. These are minor roles, like the repairman is now the repairwoman, or the handyman is now the plumber is a woman. Like nothing major, but these are little jokes that are done throughout. And there's a few things in there that kind of feel queer-coded, which is quite fun for horror viewers. But overall, the movie does kind of just feel like a pretty general slasher. It is very female-driven. The male characters are kind of pushed to the side. They get kind of treated like the girlfriends in other slasher movies. They get kind of the most vicious deaths, really. And you really do have that female focus, although the characters, because it is a fairly large cast, because it's a slasher movie, don't get a lot of focus. The general gist is Trish is throwing a slumber party as kind of a last hurrah. She's in her senior year. Everyone's growing up, getting ready to go off to college. So her and the other varsity girls are coming over to her house and Unbeknownst to them, Russ Thorne, a serial killer with a giant drill, is lurking in the background watching everything. Going on the sidelines is Trisha's neighbor Valerie, a new girl to the school who is also on varsity basketball, who the girls have kind of ignored. And she's kind of there in periphery until the end of the movie where she gets pulled into the main plot. You have a couple horror mainstays in the cast. Brink Stevens in an early role in this one. She gets a big chase scene, death scene in the beginning of the film. Robin Still, who go on to star in movies like Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama, is also in this as Valerie. She gives a pretty understated performance considering how over the top some of these movies can get. The person who actually gives the best performance, in my mind, is the guy who plays Russ Thorne, Michael Vallela. He is absolutely insane. He went full method, apparently. There's a great documentary on the Blu-ray. If you watch it, you will definitely see the excitement he has when he talks about playing this part. He is a riot. And this film does feature all of the slasher elements that you would expect, including a heavy dose of nudity, which I have to warn everyone now when I show it to him, because I think I'm just kind of blinded to it. I don't really notice it. But I told a coworker to watch this, and he came back. He's like, I was so freaked out because I was at my brother's house watching it, and I thought, oh no, he's going to think I'm watching porn. Because in the beginning, there's this long shower scene where all of the girls are talking. They're talking about the football game that was on TV the night before. But you get a prolonged shower scene with a lot of nudity. The nudity is very front-loaded. You also get a little bit of gore, not a lot. This movie didn't have a lot money for practical effects or for special effects. There's some nice bits in there. There's also plenty of humor. That is kind of what I think saves this movie from being forgettable, is that the goofiness that kind of creeps in, sometimes because of intentionally, sometimes just because this was a first-time director with a lot of green actors working on a movie together, and it had that kind of film school feel. So keep that in mind when you watch the original Slumber Party Massacre. It's definitely a B movie. It's fun, and if you go into it expecting, not an A-list production, you will have fun with it. It's best with friends. It's really best with friends. It's a mockable movie a little bit, but there's some good. The girls do the best. I say the girls. They were grown women when they did this, but the characters are in high school. The grown women do their best with the characters that they have. There's not a lot of characterization though, so mostly it's just screaming and running around. But the movie, now, there is a sister film that comes out between Slumber Party Massacre 1 and Slumber Party Massacre 2. That movie is Sorority House Massacre. I'm going to cover that one a little later, but I do want to cover it because it does kind of fit the mold, and it is worth talking about. It's quite a fun movie. But we're going to jump over to Slumber Party Massacre 2. So, in 1986, they released Slumber Party Massacre 2, which takes the idea from the original. So you kept Russ Thorne, the driller killer. We're carrying over the character of Courtney, who was Valerie's younger bratty sister, who was kind of a small part in the original. She is now our lead. We bring that all over, but we twist the plot and add elements of A Nightmare on Elm Street, because Russ Thorne dies at the end of the first one. So how do you bring him back? Well, you have him haunt Courtney's dreams as she is dealing with the pressures of growing up, of potentially losing her virginity, but also dealing with the trauma of surviving a massacre. So this movie is the one that everyone jumps to. This is like a Hello, Mary Lou Prom Night 2 situation, where this one decides to just go off the rails in the best way possible. You're introducing absurd elements, dreamlike elements, over-the-top effects that actually age pretty well. Also, the villain now runs around with a giant electric guitar with a drill off the neck. It's on the poster. You'll see it because it's probably popped up there. It's absolutely amazing, and it's a musical. So we get this in two sources. So Courtney and her friends are in a band, a kind of garage band, and we get their songs throughout the film, which were actually songs produced by and performed by a band called Wednesday Week. The songs are really fun. You could find them online. They were on Spotify, but they got taken down. I'm guessing the band didn't approve the album being put up. But yeah, the music is actually surprisingly good. You also have original songs being performed by the killer when he finally goes on his rampage at the end. The killer in this one is played by Atanas Illich, and he does a freaking amazing job. He is a riot to watch. He's also quite threatening. He's not a big guy, but he's in like this black leather garb. He's dancing around singing. He's got the drill. He's got this song called "Let's Buzz" as he's chasing one of the girls from the house. It's You have to see it to fully appreciate it. I can't describe it. This film does a couple interesting things. It tightens the cast. We have four main female characters. The lead, Courtney, is played by Crystal Bernard of Wings fame. She's also a very accomplished musician herself in real life, but she does not do any of the singing in the movie. You also have some horror mainstays or horror regulars pop up. Heidi Kozik from Friday the 13th Part 7 shows up as Sally, the drummer of the band. You have Juliet Cummins from Friday the 13th Part 5 show up as Sheila, the lead singer. And Kimberly MacArthur, who did a lot of TV and stuff like that. I think she was also a Playboy Playmate. She also plays Courtney's best friend, Amy, who is a fellow guitar player. You have the guys in the movie are there, but Courtney's my love interest. The interesting thing about him is he's played by Patrick Lowe, Rob Lowe's brother. The movie is fun. It moves at a brisk pace. It is goofy. It lessens. So the market at this point had kind of changed. The market for these movies has kind of gotten a little younger. And you also had a cast of actresses who, while they had done nudity in other films, were not, and Crystal Bernard would never do because she was the daughter of a Baptist minister. There's a lot less nudity in this film. There's like a brief moment and then it's done. I have a funny story about this. Okay, so the first time I saw this movie, my grandparents owned a bar when I was growing up. It was a sports bar in Chicago called the End Zone. And when it was dead and we were staying with my grandma during the summer, she would let us put on movies. And of course, my nutty little self rented Slumber Party Massacre 2 and put that on at the bar during the middle of the day, where it was me and like some of the old booze hounds. And we were all watching Slumber Party Massacre 2. And the guys got so rowdy in that brief moment of nudity. It was so sad when it was done. But yeah, oh God, I love that movie. I love that moment. Like those memories that's why I love this series. I have so many great memories attached to it. Most of them surrounding my grandmother, oddly enough. This is the one I know everyone goes to. If you're watching this series, watch this one. It is fun. It is really over the top. And it's definitely more enjoyable. This one was directed and written by, I want to say Deborah Brock. Deborah Brock. She was another Corbin regular that came in. I want to say this was her second film that she directed. I have the IMDb up, so I'm actually going to pull it up. It was her first film. And she actually went on to direct Rock and Roll High School Forever, the Corey Feldman vehicle. If you have seen it, I'm very sorry. I liked it when I was a kid. As an adult, not so much. She also directed several episodes of VR Troopers, which I was a Power Rangers fanatic as a kid and still kind of am as an adult. My poor husband has had to sit through many an episode of that show. So that's kind of cool as a little side note. Yeah. So I highly recommend. If I'm going to rate these films, Slumber Party Massacre 1 out of 5 is like a 3. It's a solid film, but it is also definitely a first film. It has the real rough edges, which I kind of enjoy. I like that because these are young professionals who are really trying to make a name for themselves within Hollywood and doing the best they can with what they got. That's kind of what Corman was best known for. Slumber Party Massacre 2 for me is a 5 out of 5. It has all of the best over-the-top elements that I want from these kind of films, and it does it without getting too mean. This movie, when the violence kicks in, when it all happens, it is intense. It's not overtly gory. You don't get a lot of like big on-screen gore, but there is some. And the killer is cruel, and you like these characters. You spend a lot of time with them before everything goes down, so some of those deaths hit pretty hard. But these movies are very fun, and they are, for lack of a better term, light entertainment. They do not go too heavy. They do not belabor torture or anything like that. Then we get to Slumber Party Massacre 3, which came out in 1990. So, Slumber Party Massacre 3 is directed by Sally Madison and written by Catherine Searin. Sally Madison was a producer for Corman. She had done some action films, I believe, beforehand, and she wanted to get into directing. And Catherine Searin actually, she passed away 2022, but she would go on to do a lot of writing for TV and straight-to-video movies, but she was a pretty accomplished writer. Because even if they're not big productions, you're still a working writer. That's damn impressive. Sorry, a lot of people want to be working writers in Hollywood, and even it doesn't matter what you write. If you're getting paid to do it, that's impressive to me. So Sally Madison gets this job. She does not want this job. She does not want to do a slasher film. Slasher films were also kind of on the way out in 1990. But they decide to take a completely different take on the series, dropping the whole Russ Thorne angle. They also drop the more lighthearted approach and the comedy, which is what eventually would bite this film in the ass. Instead, they take a much darker and grittier tone, especially when it comes to our new killer, played by, I have his name up here, Britann Fry. So we have a very similar plot to the original. This time it's just a group of friends. They're having a slumber party because someone's parents are out of town. They're going to have a barbecue and have fun, and the boys might come over. General breakdown. We do get some B-movie, exploitation, and horror movie regulars in this. We have Hope Marie Carlton and Maria Ford show up. Overall, though, this movie is not enjoyable. And a big part of that, and this is going to be a spoiler, but a big part of why this movie is not as enjoyable is the motivation of the killer. So Russ Thorne in the original is just kind of, he kills because he's wants to kill. He's attracted to women, and that's how he expresses the attraction. If you watch the original film, Russ, when he kills someone, he'll usually say, like, I love you, something like that. It gets kind of creepy, but it works. But generally, we don't dig too far into what made him a killer. In this one, they go the opposite way. So we uncover through backstory and all this other stuff that our killer is killing these women because he is impotent, because he was sexually abused by his cop uncle. So you're introducing this very inappropriate, I'm going to say for a slasher movie like this, a very inappropriate angle that really kind of re-victimizes, I got to find the right way to express this. You're taking the victim of sexual abuse and making them into a psychotic killer. And you're not examining this in any real or intelligent way because it's a slasher movie. The whole point of the movie is to run around and chase screaming women with a drill. The drill remains because we still want the phallic symbol. I do this because there are these big pneumatic drills that have like handles on the side. You still want that phallic symbol because that is now an extension of his manhood since he is impotent because he was sexually abused by his uncle. Yeah, not fun. And there's also a harsher, more sexual edge to the film, which I actually cannot blame. That's Roger Corman's fault. So the original cut of this movie did not include, like the second one, a lot of nudity. This version, Roger Corman got that cut, was not happy with it, and required reshoots to amp up the nudity. And the reshoot involved taking Maria Ford's death scene. Maria Ford was pretty well known in the B-movie scene. She had done Strip to Kill 2 with Kat Shea, also produced by Corman. And she's great in that movie. If you get a chance to watch it, I highly recommend it. It's really fun. But they then reworked her death scene where she is now trying to get the killer not to kill her by taking off her clothes. And there's a scene where it's a very uncomfortable scene that stands out in an already pretty gross film as being extra disgusting. And then her death is this belabored kind of overtly sexual moment involving the drill. Now, when I say that, like she gets drilled in the chest, it's not like she gets, no, we're not going sleepaway camp here. But it's still, this movie took the fun of the first two, squeezed it out, and just made it gross and oppressive. And after I watched it, I kind of needed a shower. And I will say, when I was a kid and I saw this at the video store, I was so excited because I didn't know it existed. So I was so excited to rent it. And when I sat down and watched it, I was the most disappointed teenager in the world because all of the fun that I'd had with the first two movies was not there. Instead, I was left with this kind of, this feeling that I just watched something really wrong. I will say Sally Madison does not seem to like this film. I don't think her or Catherine Searon really enjoyed working on this film, and they're not happy with the final product. And I agree with them. I don't like the movie, and I would definitely say skip it. It's not easy to find right now. It was in Shout Factory's original trilogy pack. It's not on the Blu-ray, I don't think. It's not well loved by most people for good reason. It's pretty gross. So, yeah, we're going to move on from that one. So the series lays dormant for a couple years, for about a decade, probably 2 decades maybe. stays dormant. There are attempts to actually make a fourth Slumber Party Massacre movie. What usually will happen with those is someone would try and get, in Corman's camp, would try and get Jim Wynorski to make a fourth one. And actually, one of those movies did get made. It was not released as Slumber Party Massacre 4, though. The movie that I'm talking about there is a movie called Cheerleader Massacre that is directed by Jim Wynorski and features a bevy of B-movie queens. Brink Stevens comes back playing their character from Slumber Party Massacre. There's a whole flashback where she's talking about escaping the killer. You also have B-movie regulars like Tammy Sheffield, Samantha Phillips. I think Nikki Fritz was in it. Let me see. I don't see her in it, but if I remember correctly, she has a bit in it. A lot of Jim Wynorski regulars. Also, adult film star April Flowers is in there, although she's credited as two different names. It's quite weird. This movie is not easy to find. It's very hard to find, actually, and the DVDs go for a lot of money. It never was actually released on Blu-ray. I saw this movie when it first came out. I barely remember it. It was okay. It was a Jim Wynorski cheapie slasher film. I do remember there's some goofy, fun effects in there. There was a few twists and turns, but overall, kind of forgettable. And I honestly, I think this was originally supposed to be released as Slumber Party Massacre 4 because it does connect to the main series. However, I think they decided they didn't want to taint the series by having a man. It's weird saying that would be tainting it, but they taint the legacy of the series by releasing a Slumber Party Massacre film that was directed and written by men. And I agree with them. That is something that they have held on to. So it takes us until 2021 until we get Slumber Party Massacre's reboot. This was done with Corman involved. It also was produced by Sci-Fi and Shout Factory. This was originally done to be shown on... There's two versions of the film. There is the TV version, and then there is the uncut version that was released on digital rental and on the Blu-ray and DVD. This is directed by Danishka Esterhazy and written by Suzanne Cayley. These are two people who know how to write. They worked on a bunch of different horror movies, TV shows. They know what they're doing, and they do a great job with it. I have to say, the reboot is all of the best of the first two. It kind of reinvents the story. So you have a group of young women who are going on a trip. They're going to rent a house, and in the background we're hearing about this old Slumber Party Massacre that had happened. One of the girls' mothers is a survivor, and it turns out they're actually going out there to track down the killer from the original Slumber Party Massacre. I don't remember if they call him Russ Thorn. I'm pulling it up. It's just been a minute since... Yeah, they do. So they're going after Russ Thorn. And while this is going on, there's also a house across the lake from where they're staying, where it's a bunch of himbos who are like having pillow fights and taking long showers where the camera just pans over their butts. And it just leans into kind of that playing with gender roles, playing with misogyny within slasher movies. This is where you are seeing a truly feminist take on the material in the best way, because it does it with a heavy dollop of humor, but it never forgets that it's a slasher movie. So there are some really fun kills. There's a lot of fun twists. The acting is really, really tight. Like, this is a good group of actresses who do a great job. I'm surprised we have not seen another one of these, but I'm just happy with the one we got. But if you really want the feminist take on the material, I would say this is the one to watch. And you could start with this one. This one does not have any connections to the other ones. Total 5-star film for me. It is a total blast. And it was really well received when it first came out. Because people really were feeling what they brought to this. And they did it with the utmost respect for the material. Because they understood Slumber Party Massacre has long-standing fans. Which confuses some people because the quality of some of these films is not that great. But there are a lot of fans of these movies. And they treat it with respect while also poking it real hard with a stick because it deserves it. There are in-jokes that tie into the second movie. The guitar minus the giant drill shows up. There's some other things in there that kind of like play into a lot of the fun gender stuff that they played with in the first one. Highly recommend this one. Highly recommend it. If you can get, it's really easy to find. Because it's been released so recently, you can get the Blu-ray, you can digitally rent it. Check it out. It is a great send-up of everything the series has done and what it means to people. and it is done with such heart. And I remember reading the interviews with the director, Danishka Esterhazy, as this movie was coming out, and you could tell she was having so much fun working with the material. It's shot in South Africa. It's got a really interesting look to it, but it's honestly one of the best horror comedies I've seen in a while. Now, it is a TV movie, so the budget is fairly low. However, it's still tight. Totally recommend it. It's really fun. It's great, especially got a group of friends, because the humor is pretty strong in this one, but in a really enjoyable, not scary movie kind of way, but it's really aiming to like entertain you, and it does it without being insanely mean like the third one, which needs to be forgotten. Okay, so that is the main series. As you can see, I'm getting pretty sweaty. My office is quite hot. That is the main series. So we're going to talk about our honorable mention, our sister film, Sorority House Massacre. So interesting thing with Sorority House Massacre. Sorority House Massacre comes out in 1986, which is actually the same year. Is it the same year? No, it's the year before. Slumber Party Massacre 2, I think I quoted the year wrong, came out in 87. Sorority House Massacre comes out in 1986. It's directed by Carol Frank, who was the assistant to Amy Holden Jones on Slumber Party Massacre. Carol Frank also wrote this movie. This movie adds a slight supernatural edge to a pretty straightforward slasher story. You have a main character who has lost her memories, but she keeps having flashbacks to seeing this family getting murdered. She is staying at a sorority house over break because she has nowhere to go, and the sisters are kind of like welcoming her, but she's realizing these flashbacks that she's having that she doesn't have context for took place in this house. And of course, while this is going on, we have a guy escaping a mental asylum who's responsible for the murders that she's flashing back to. He shows up, all hell breaks loose. This movie gets kind of forgotten. It came out during the big glut of, like, the last glut of slasher movies in the 80s, so it got buried. It is a fairly small film. It's very set-locked to this house. There's a few moments outside of it, but really, we're in this one house the entire time, which does make it feel even smaller. The cast does a really strong job. The direction's quite fun. It has some good moments in there. And overall, for what it is, it's a really good experience. It also takes a lot of the same notes that we have with Slumber Party Massacre, where we push the female characters forward, make them the primary focus. It's not just a final girl situation. You do have strong female characters throughout. The guys are kind of pushed to the background. This one does also follow the same rule as Slumber Party Massacre, which was a requirement from Corman, by the way. There is nudity. There is also a lot of male nudity. One of the guys spends a good chunk of the middle of the film running around butt naked. Was not expecting that, and I was quite, I'm not going to say pleasantly surprised, but I was just like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming. But it has a good pace. It has some fun moments, some good suspense, and it has some likable characters. It is available on 4K. You could also watch it on Tubi and all those places. So I definitely recommend, if you like Slumber Party Massacre, check out Sorority House Massacre. Avoid Sorority House Massacre 2. It was a Jim Wynorski film, was not originally supposed to even be a Sorority House Massacre movie. It features a lot of the worst traits of Jim Wynorski films from that time period. It's super cheap. The plot is nonsensical, and there's a lot of gratuitous, ridiculous nudity. I mean, if you want to have a good time and you're drunk, or not drunk, but if you're hanging out with your friends and you're having fun, that one might be worth it, but it's hard to track down, and it's also expensive if you're going to be buying the DVD. It ain't worth the money. That movie was actually remade as Hard to Die like a year later, where they just moved everything into a high-rise, put everyone in lingerie, gave them machine guns, and that movie is bizarre and even harder to find, but that one is the better film. Still, you lose all ties to the original idea of what drove the original Massacre films by the time you get there. But the original Sorority House Massacre, really, really do recommend it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add, and I think we are good. So, I'll say this. The one thing I love about this series, and actually with Corman in general, he had a lot of faults, and he made a lot of questionable decisions. However, one of the things that he never really held back on was putting people, underrepresented people, in the director's chair. For him, especially because he dealt with exploitation films that usually featured women being sexually exploited, he preferred to have women in positions of power on those films. It made it easier for him to release those films. It made audiences more comfortable with the material, and I think In some ways, it also made the actresses more comfortable. This is also evident in films like The Student Nurses, which is actually one of my favorite films, Roger Corman's Down horror films, which was a take off of Valley of the Dolls, which follows a group of nurses. That was Stephanie Rothman who directed that one. And sometimes, as with the Slumber Party Massacre series, it works. Sometimes, as what happened with Humanoids from the Deep, it really doesn't. And there are times where he would step in and kind of force these films into uncomfortable territory that the original directors were not comfortable with. Luckily, that really only happened with Slumber Party Massacre 3, which already had elements in it that were quite questionable and gross. Sorry, having your killer be the victim of sexual abuse is just bad. It's bad. It's a bad call. It's a bad take. And it already puts stigma on a group of people that are trying to deal with enough bullshit. So, take a leap off a cliff with that one. But in the other cases, we actually saw women be able to leverage this into better careers. And I love that. And I love seeing a genre like horror have some more diverse voices in there. And it continues to grow the more diverse the voices get. That's the only way genres survive, is if new voices are given the chance to really express themselves. And this was early on, so it still had a lot of learning to do, but it was this first step in trying to get more diverse voices behind the camera and in front of the camera. I hope that continues. It obviously is slower than a lot of people would like, but again, this is an interesting series because it holds to that value that this is a space for female creatives to get in there and make their mark in the slasher genre. And I hope we get more of them. I hope the legacy can continue on. And on that note, I'm going to wrap this video up. It's getting a little long. So thank you all for listening to me ramble for the last half hour. If you enjoyed this video and want to check out my other stuff, check out the rest of the channel. I got some more fun, mostly book videos. If you really like this, then subscribe, hit the little bell so you can see when the new ones come out. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. I release new episodes every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And as I always say, enjoy what you enjoy, love what you're reading, and have yourself an amazing morning, afternoon, or night. Bye.